And now, I would like to introduce our Disability Discrimination Commissioner, Alastair McEwin, who will open the symposium. Alastair has recently been appointed to this important position. Prior to this, he was chairperson of the New South Wales Disability Council, the official advisory board to the New South Wales Government on disability issues. He was also the president of the Deaf Society of New South Wales and chairperson of the Australian Theatre of the Deaf. Alastair has also been the coordinator of the World Federation of the Deaf Expert Group on Human Rights and an adjunct lecturer for the Masters of Community Management degree at the University of Technology, Sydney. So please welcome Alastair, who will now address us.
Hello everyone, how are you today? It's a pleasure to be here. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge and respect the Aboriginals who own this land. I'd like to pay my respect to the elders past and present. And I would also like to acknowledge the Aboriginal people that we have at the symposium here today. And also acknowledge, I think, some of the disadvantages that Aboriginal people, particularly Aboriginal people with a disability who live in Australia, have experienced, and I will ensure that I will do my best to try to resolve some of those barriers and limitations as the Commissioner. I would also like to thank Lynn Leslie for the very warm welcome today, and also recognise Kevin Cox, the Disability Discrimination Commissioner for Queensland, who's present today. Just going back in time a little, if we go back to 2013, and we think about the time where Julia Gillard was the Prime Minister, she introduced the bill for the NDIS at that time. And that was a particularly exciting moment for everybody, especially for the disability community. And I remember feeling particularly excited. But sometime before the bill was passed, I was reading a letter in the Sydney Morning Herald. And it was from an individual in the community who objected to the NDIS. And she was asking why Julia Gillard was rushing the NDIS bill through, why there was such a rush and why that bill needed to happen. And I remember reading that, and I remember feeling quite upset and affronted at that time, because it was well past time for people with disabilities to achieve some form of equity. When will the time be, I remember thinking. And those attitudes, unfortunately, are still present. There is not yet full acceptance of the NDIS and the reasons for the NDIS and the reason we have it today. So that letter really made me realise that we still have quite a way to go before we come to true equity within the disability sector. I don't really need to go into detail around why we have the NDIS. You're here today, you recognise it, but certainly there are some points that I would like to make. The NDIS was set up to ensure that people with disability had options and choices and control in relation to services that they received. For many, many years there's been oppression, abuse, neglect, and at times cruelty, I think, to individuals in relation to receiving care. But I think that time now needs to finish, we need to move on, and we need to recognise that people with disability are out in the community and can be independent. The NDIS is person-centred, and that approach is very important. It's because we're all human. It's not really about the services themselves, but it's about people. It's about the humanity of people. So the NDIS also follows the Convention of Rights of People with a Disability. Article 19 says that people with a disability have rights to live independently, how they wish, to have free choice, and to enjoy their independence. The NDIS set up. I congratulate the government for establishing the NDIS. I congratulate the government and other parties for supporting the NDIS and recognising the support that's required for those different groups. The ALP, the Liberals, the Greens, those different political groups have really been fantastic. Making my job, I think, a little bit easier, knowing how to support, having the support of the complete government for the NDIS program. The NDIS is about getting people out in the community, heading them off into school, employment, out to see the movies, out to a cafe, having holidays with their families. Fantastic opportunities for themselves to create and to be part of the economic, social and cultural fabric of our lives. The NDIS is one of the most significant changes that has occurred in my lifetime. It's really, I suppose, a dream for people with a disability. The NDIS is part of the bigger picture of life. We need to think about access to education, employment, housing, health, premises, goods and services, and the list goes on. That said, the NDIS has enormous potential to be the foundation of how people with disability access all those things, yet keeping in mind that the government cannot shirk its responsibilities and provide appropriate funding and ongoing funding to ensure that those areas of life continue and are successful. Social, transport, health, all of those things which make up a part of the bigger picture. Some of the barriers for people, some linguistically diverse people particularly, and those obviously who have a disability and also a poor background. If you don't know about something, then how can you access it for a start? I think that's probably one of the biggest barriers that we have, is to ensure that people who have disabilities from a poor background actually know about the NDIS. I think that's one of the biggest barriers that we face at the moment in relation to language barriers specifically, for people who perhaps live in remote areas in Australia, for people who maybe live away from specific communities. How will they receive that information? So I see that personally as a large barrier, and it's something that we need to ensure communication from the government, from the NDIS, makes its way out into the community in the most appropriate way. And that includes translators, translation into different languages, ensuring that we have appropriate communication strategies to ensure the information reaches those people. And also the government needs to make sure that they know where those people are from, particularly those that have a poor background. Where are they, these people? Also, people with disabilities really have to have some sense of empowerment and understanding that they can make decisions. For many, many years they've been told what they will get and what services will be provided, and have just had to accept it without having any options or control or any appropriate framework of governance or the right to service. So the NDIS is really a massive change. The philosophy itself and the rights of people with disability is certainly a massive part of that program. So people with disability, I think, maybe have felt less empowered, now have the option of saying, well, I can feel more empowered, I can make decisions and choices I can match and choose service providers that I like from the community, which is overcoming a large barrier within itself. The NDIS has an enormous responsibility to encourage people with disabilities to feel more confident and able to take the services and obtain the services that they need. We also need a well-resourced and a well-funded advocacy system. People like you. I mean, you're the people with the knowledge and with the understanding and experience. The knowledge of how to advocate appropriately for people who have a disability. And I can see that your system is very successful, that you have an enormous responsibility for ensuring that people with a disability can stand up and become more independent moving forward. And I think that the government needs to recognise that and ensure that the appropriate resources, including money and funds, are provided to make that happen. A few of the other barriers I've noticed, other things that perhaps we need to see are service organisations, service providers, cultural competence. They really need to be aware and understand the diversity that exists within the community of people with a disability, and specifically for those with a poor background. I mean, if you think about it, it is a risk. The service that people are actually getting doesn't really match their needs, perhaps not all the time. Really, what we need ultimately are interpreters, translators, support workers. I mean, that's a big challenge if you think about it. Australia has a very, very diverse community, people from a range of various backgrounds. However, I've noticed that people who have a disability perhaps have fallen behind in service provision, perhaps because people who provide services don't necessarily have the requisite skills needed or understanding to provide those services. So I think that if we have a look at it holistically around what we can provide to individuals and ensure that we get an understanding, have cultural competence, understand the value of resources and the rights of those individuals, we're on the right track. Going back again to 2013, I really congratulate Julia Gillard, the Prime Minister at the time, for the enormous determination she showed by getting that bill through Parliament. She understood it was the right thing to do at the time. She understood that the time was now. She recognised the enormous value and importance of the being a signatory to the human rights UNCI. And for the first time ever, the focus is person-centred. It's what I need to be able to head out into the community. It's not the other way around anymore. So it's not around me trying to match or to fit in with the provider. It's about the provider having to fit in and match with my needs. Going back to 2013, yes, absolutely. It was well past time that something like the NDIS was established. And I think that my role is to ensure that the NDIS is successful, that it achieves its goals and aims. And I'm really excited to be working with all of you to ensure that it is an enormous success, and for everyone who has a disability, and I would like to thank you very much for your time today.